Hey guys, sorry I'm like a minute late, so I'm just gonna wait for everybody to join that said they're gonna join, and I know a few of you are gonna get here in just a few moments, so I'm just gonna wait for everyone to join and then you can start asking your questions right away. Sorry, it's one of those days where I'm not wearing makeup. I wasn't gonna just put it on just for you guys. I was gonna show up how I looked all day, which is no makeup, just in sweats. Just one of those days. Hey guys, thank you so much for joining me. I'm just waiting for everyone to join and then you guys can absolutely just start asking your questions. I hope you guys' Wednesday is going really good. I don't know if this is a good day or not to do lives. I think it's kind of nice to, in the middle of the week, maybe spend an hour together and just get some health and wellness questions answered, get some truth out there for some women that are maybe too afraid to ask questions. So I'm really appreciative of the people that come and join me regularly and ask questions, because you're speaking up for somebody that maybe is too shy to ask a question, and you're doing something really brave. So thank you for always asking your questions when you do. But yeah, so whenever you guys have questions, you can start asking them and I will start answering them. I'm pretty sure a few more people will join throughout the live, and we will welcome them with open arms. Okay, here they come. I took CBD oil and my period ended 5 days later after a prolonged period. Awesome. Then it came back today. Maybe stress related? Thoughts? Yes, so good thinking, good detective work. CBD oil can be very, very helpful at lowering cortisol and lowering stress hormones. And we're not exactly sure how it goes about doing that. We know that our whole body has cannabinoid receptors all over, and specifically in our uterus. And so our uterus is receptive to CBD oil in some way, shape, or form, and it can really help lower stress hormones. And so we know that period problems are caused by stress-related issues, thyroid-related issues, and it could be any of those things. So, you really want to make sure that your stress levels are low. Also, maybe look around in your environment. Are you near a chemical that could be off-gassing something estrogenic that's in your vicinity that could be maybe causing this prolonged bleeding? Because remember that estrogen is usually responsible in some way, shape, or form for prolonged bleeding, because estrogen is what thickens the uterine lining. And so we have to kind of ask ourselves, what's causing our uterus to shed? And we know that there's estrogen present because there is uterine lining there to shed. So it's usually interrelated, but CBD oil can help lower estrogen and it can help with inflammation. And so those are things that can cause stress on the body. So if CBD oil is working for you, I would take it every single day and see if that helps. If if it started again even while you're taking the CBD, then maybe start to look around. I usually recommend for prolonged periods eating a carrot every single day, a medium-sized carrot, like an actual carrot, because it will bind to estrogen in the gut and help carry it out. Then I also recommend taking your basal body temps. Let's see if I have one right here. I don't have a thermometer, but usually I just get a basal body thermometer. You can get it on Amazon or you can get it at a drugstore, and you would stick it under your armpit right when you wake up, and you leave it in the very depths of your armpit for about 10 minutes. And what that's going to tell you is it's going to tell you your waking body temperature, and that's going to tell you if your metabolic performance is up to par. You want your body temperature to be as close to 98.6 as possible. And if it's really low, or if you're getting like spotty temperatures, like up and down and up and down, that could be a sign that you're under stress. But yeah, I would definitely relate it to stress in some way. Your nails always look so nice. Do you worry about toxins in nail polish? Yeah, so I actually do the SNS dip polish, so it doesn't have any kind of toxic fragrance. It is that you are dipping your nails into acrylic powder, but you're not getting any liquid polish on your nails, and you're not doing any UV gel. So the SNS is actually, like, in my opinion, so amazing. It doesn't peel off like gel. Like, gel seems to lift on my nails, whereas the SNS dip polish is really, really hard. It's almost like having an acrylic nail, but it's your own natural nail. So it's usually around the same price as a gel manicure would be, and most nail salons are starting to pick it up. So I would look into SNS polish. But yeah, I mean, nail polish is actually one of the most toxic products out there. It has formaldehyde in it, which actually mummifies your cells, and it's a very strong endocrine disruptor. So I for a very long time just never painted my nails, because even the natural nail polishes are still. And so anything that's liquid that's going on your nail, it will absorb into the nail bed and absorb under the nail bed. But once the SNS came out, the powder dip, it's not perfect, like it's still super toxic, but it doesn't smell toxic, and it is not liquid, so it's not soaking into the nail bed as much. So it's a fine balance, you guys. Manicures make me happy. I love having my nails done, and I love having like fun nail colors, and I'm not willing to give it up. I eliminate toxins from a lot of my food and a lot of my hygiene products, and so there's a select few things that I don't give up because it makes me feel so good that when I don't get those things done, I feel really stressed out. And so I think that enjoying yourself, like I get my hair done and I get my nails done, and those two things are toxic, but I've limited so many chemicals in my life. I'm not going to restrict things that truly make me happy, and so I weigh the options and I choose things that I do prioritize and make me feel really good about myself. I started taking black cohosh instead of Vitex. Been taking it for a week and I finally got a healthy flow. It's been months due to family stress. How long should I take it for? That's something that you kind of have to feel out yourself. When it comes to herbs or it comes to supplements, you can really feel it if you're in tune with your body. So herbs should be taken only as long as necessary, and if you were taking it particularly to get a healthy cycle back, I would probably wait until you had 2 healthy cycles to kind of cool off on it. But again, my word does not trump your body. So let's say I said, wait 2 healthy cycles, and you're like, well, Jessica told me 2 healthy cycles, but I'm getting estrogen dominance like symptoms. I'm getting a heavy flow, I'm clotting, I have sore breasts. Immediately stop. Listen to your body. Remember, I don't know your body as you do. You're in your body, you're feeling it. And so if anything ever feels weird on a supplement, immediately cease it and listen to your body. But yeah, I would, if you're feeling good on it, I would wait until you have 2 consecutive healthy cycles to kind of get things back going, since you've been exposed to so much stress. Can you speak to fibroids and the best way to nourish? Yeah, so I'm assuming it's uterine fibroids. So remember, you guys, that uterine fibroids are growths that build up in the uterine lining. And like I just said, I went into a little bit, is that estrogen is what's responsible for building up uterine lining, and progesterone is what's responsible for thinning it and keeping it really, really healthy and toned. And so I see usually some type of estrogen dominance in people that have uterine fibroids. If you actually look at your symptoms, you probably have more estrogen dominant symptoms than just uterine fibroids. But particularly it's going to affect the uterine lining. So it's very important to be really actively supporting the liver, detoxifying estrogens regularly by drinking chlorophyll in your water, making sure you're getting 100 grams of bioavailable protein every single day, making sure you're getting plenty of sugar and carbohydrate, because that is very supportive to the liver, plenty of salt, and plenty of saturated fats. And that is really going to support the liver detoxification process. And then you have to make sure that you're lowering inflammation and prostaglandins. So prostaglandins are in every single cell in our body, and they're responsible for inflammation. And many people that have uterine fibroids, endometriosis, they have high levels of prostaglandins in the body. This is usually due to eating too many omega-6 fatty acids, which turn into prostaglandins. And so it's very important to restrict omega-6 fats, like from industrial seed oils like canola oil, soybean oil, etc. Even nuts can be estrogenic, and then grains. And focus on getting your fats mostly from ghee, coconut oil, grass-fed butter, and meats. And you will find that you see your uterine fibroids get a lot better. And then you want to make sure you're lowering stress in the other ways as well. So making sure you're getting enough sleep, making sure you're getting the right nutrients. B vitamins are very important for uterine fibroids. And then also really lowering stress and exercising in a way that increases blood flow to the reproductive area. So really focusing on core and pelvic floor strengthening exercises. I do use a chemical spray for cleaning in the kitchen. Yay, I have carrots. Do you have recommendations for natural cleaners, antibacterial? And can I get basal body temperature or thermometer from Amazon? Yes, you can get a basal body thermometer from Amazon. And I like Branch Basics for cleaning products. Remember, you guys, do not use chemical sprays in your house. Those are some of the worst chemical endocrine disruptors, and they will affect your hormones, not just the day that you're using them, but you are being chronically low-grade exposed to those at all times because they sit as a residue on your furniture, on your counters, and then if your food touches your counters, you just got a dose of antibiotics internally. And so really make sure that your household cleaning products are natural. There's so many on the market that are so good anyways. There's no really need to cook with chemicals, but Branch Basics is one of my favorites, which you have to order online, and it comes in a concentrate, and then you just actually dilute it with water, or you can use Myers brand, which is sold at Target. I also like them. Any recommendations for a college student struggling with PCOS? Food recommendations, supplements or oils, how to deal with the confidence kicker of excess hair growth. Yeah, you guys, so it's really important to see PCOS for what it is. PCOS is a metabolic syndrome. It is the fact that your metabolism is damaged and needs to be repaired. I think that sometimes a diagnosis can really get us into this weird mindset state of like, oh, I just have to live with this forever and this is my fate, and it's just so discouraging to think of it that way. But when you look at it as just a metabolic syndrome that has probably propelled and accelerated your whole life and has left you in this place, now it's time to just reverse that, right? You have to reverse the damage that has been done. And so as a college student, the first thing you have to do is get organized so that you can limit your stress levels. And I'm sorry that you have to do this in college, but it's going to be good for you anyways, because it's going to set you up for life. But you need to take time for yourself. It's very easy in college to get very, very stressed, and the pressure of life on top of it, such a hard time of life, your early 20s, you are still figuring things out, and that can be a lot of weight on your shoulders, just life weight, right? Stress is going to just wreak its havoc on your metabolism. That is what causes a damaged metabolism long term. So that's the first thing. You have to get organized, you have to get your mindset right, and you have to really learn how to manage your stress levels well. Get things done, don't procrastinate, take time for yourself, and really try to balance things well. That's your first thing of homework. And then the second thing is do the best you can with food. I really recommend not focusing so much on restriction and more focusing on what you need to get in at every meal. This is why I place such an emphasis on nutrient-dense foods over very restrictive styles of eating. You always want to make sure every meal has protein, carb, fat, and salt added. The proper kinds of salt, like Himalayan pink salt and Celtic sea salt. Keep your meals very, very simple, especially in college. You probably are on a slim budget and you probably don't have a lot of time anyways. Cook big amounts of meat in the crock pot. Maybe do it in a broth so you can both sip on the broth and eat the meat. And then always have fruit on hand. Always have like starchy vegetables cut up on hand. Beets, carrots, those are super hormone nourishing. That can be for your carbs. And then you always just put saturated fats on your food if you don't have a lot of saturated fat coming from your meat. But if you're doing let's say you do a roast and that sustains you for 3 or 4 days in the crock pot, perfect, because now you're getting fat from that meat and you're getting protein. And you're getting lots of gelatin and nutrients. And you could even throw a lot of vegetables in that roast and you have pretty much a full meal. And then if you're still hungry, you can add some fruit on the side. Or in the morning, you just have hard-boiled eggs with fresh fruit and just make that your breakfast. Keep things very, very simple. And I know it can get boring, quote unquote boring, but you will end up being way better off, and then you don't have to think about it. You know what I mean? Like you can just kind of eat what you have available to you, and then on the weekends you can have more fun things, but just keep it very simple so you stick to a plan and you stick to something that is sustainable. If you go on a crazy diet or you try to do something too crazy or too expensive, it's not going to last or be sustainable while you're at college or at school. Can you speak to Berkey water filtration? Is learning they have a shower head. If you don't already have a water softener, would the filter be overloaded? Are the chlorine, lead, fluoride traces? Yeah, so those are questions for them, you guys. I personally don't even use a Berkey because I recommend it because I trust them, but I use a reverse osmosis filter, and I use an Aquasana shower filter. I use their filter because I really like it. It's $50, and you can find a similar company at Costco as well called Hahn. And Hahn shower filters are made by the same manufacturer that makes Aquasana filters. So I think Berkey is very overpriced. There's a lot of gravity filters on the market that I believe do the same exact things that they do. They're just really good at branding themselves. But like all of the actual questions about like water softeners and stuff like that would probably have to be answered by them, because I'm not really sure about all the technical things like their product getting clogged up and that kind of thing. And yes, chlorine, lead, fluoride traces in household water are a concern, but not as much of a concern as in your drinking water. So first things first is to get your drinking water filtered. If you're going to be consuming it, it's very important to make sure it's filtered. And then, you know, it is a good idea to get a filter on your shower, and especially on your shower, because when you're breathing vaporization in, it gets inside your lungs, and those chlorine turns into chloramine. That's just biochemistry. When chlorine gets vaporized, it turns into something much more powerful called chloramines, and chloramines are toxic. And so if you have like anybody in your family that has asthma or any kind of breathing issues, chloramines are going to be a huge issue for them because they have weak lungs. And so I think that shower filters are really important. And then if you're gonna like sit in a bath for a really long time and absorb all that water, then it is important to get a bath filter as well. So all in all, I would prioritize getting my shower or my drinking water filtered first, and then once you can maybe make that extra step, a shower filter is worth investing in. And they're usually on, I don't want to say cheap, but I do want to say they're not as expensive as like a drinking water filter. Is CrossFit good for PCOS? Absolutely. I don't want to say absolutely not, but absolutely not. Anything that's super, super intense is probably not a good idea. Also, I don't really like CrossFit because I, started my career as a personal trainer, and I do not believe that they functionally warm you up well. Like from an athletic and personal training perspective, you need to prepare someone's body for about 12 weeks before they take any part in athletics such as CrossFit or even similar exercises, or they can really, really get hurt. You can actually end up really causing trauma to your muscles and your tissues. And that comes with a whole other problem, you guys. So not only when you do intense exercise are you actually raising cortisol levels, and every time you break muscle down, you have to build it back up. That's inflammation, right? And so you need to have plenty of nutrients for that, and you need plenty of sleep, rest, water. You need to make sure your nutrition is on point before you start breaking muscle down and building it back up. Because guess what? If you don't have what you need to build it back up, what is your body going to do? Well, your body's going to raise those stress hormones and start breaking down bones, organs, tissues, and muscles to actually rebuild. It's a very stressful process. So I'm not a huge fan of CrossFit. I think if you really love it, then that's another story. It can be worked into a routine in some way, shape, or form, but it's very important to be very conservative with exercise and to exercise in a way that really does add to your life, not subtract from it. But I do recommend laying a foundation of nutrition, proper sleep, proper sunlight, to lay the foundation for proper recovery. And then you can exercise 12 weeks later when you're ready to your body's ready to take that on. But if you're in a really stressed out state or like a new diagnosis of PCOS, CrossFit's probably not a great idea. Do you have an update on when Fully Nourished is dropping? I cannot wait. Yeah, I was just, before I was like working on it nonstop for the past 3 hours. So I'm trying not to like give you guys an exact date, but I'm thinking probably like around April 20th. So I'm just working really hard on it, and it's probably going to be around like 3 weeks or so. So hang tight. I had to actually go in and like, I finished like the outline and was just getting ready to record the videos and everything, because it's going to be like a full online course. It's going to walk you through step by step. It's not just going to be like an ebook, like, hey guys, here's an ebook. Like, it's going to give you everything you need. And it was just kind of overwhelming a little bit. And so I tried to I had to kind of go in and edit and like narrow things down, because it just kind of seemed like overwhelming and too complicated. And so this is my first course, you guys. So thank you so much for being patient and bearing with me. I'm trying not to be like my perfectionist self, but it's like really hard because I just want it to be perfect for you guys. So I'm trying to find that balance between getting it out there to you and also making it something that is really going to change your life. And it's going to be out soon. It's going to be out this month for sure. I'm going to do whatever it takes to make that happen. Like, even if I have to pull all-nighters, it's going to happen. And I'm like, I can sleep when I'm dead, okay? Do you know how to help reverse having an overproduction of reverse T3? Yeah, so reverse T3, like, you just have to understand that reverse T3 is just a less active form of T3. And it's usually high due to lots of stressors, a lack of oxygen, so you're not breathing deeply. But it's usually high just due to high cortisol, high adrenaline. It can be high prolactin, which are just all stress hormones. So it's important to take a step back and look at stress rather than just look at reverse T3, because reverse T3 is usually high just due to stress. Your body's not utilizing T3 properly, and so it's turning it into reverse T3. In the past, when I started to work out, my period would start. I know it can also help, but it got frustrating, but I want to start again. Do you know why that happens, and how can I ease back in? So there are different women that are very sensitive to stress. Like, I'm talking very. And in that case, you're probably not going to do well until you've gotten your body into a better place. So you can try again. I would ease back in. I would start with maybe 2 or 3 walks per week. Just walk around your neighborhood or walk on the treadmill for like 20 to 30 minutes, just very low pace, like you're having a little, stroll on the side of the road. And then I would maybe add one like 10-minute HIIT session in, or whatever you like to work out. Like, maybe you're doing strength training or whatever it is. Do it for like 5 or 10 minutes. You guys, like, us ladies, we're like go-getters. We do like a million things at once. We're just intense, right? Like, women are just so intense. We love to do like everything, and we're like, it's all or nothing. Like, I'm either going to lay on the couch and eat Doritos, or I'm going to do CrossFit and be a CrossFit athlete. And I'm like, whoa, cool your heels. Like, it's time to just find a balance. And so when you're easing back into something, like, I'm talking ease, you guys, like slow like a snail. So start with like 2 or 3 walks a week, then maybe try like a 10-minute workout once a week and see if that gets your period, going. If you bleed when you work out still, your body's just not ready for it. Like, it's just not. You're under way too much stress and your hormones are still just too fragile. You should just think of it that way. And that's not a bad thing. That just means your body is still in a healing process and it's not ready, and it just needs rest and nutrients and support. And that's all good. Just look at it that way, and then try again in a month, and then do it, go cycle by cycle. Best supplements or suggestions for thinning hair. So you guys have to understand that hair loss is not a separate issue. Hair loss is a red alert, a beep, 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 beep. Something is wrong with your metabolism, because your hair follicles are some of the most energy intensive, you can almost call them mini organs in your body, besides your brain and your heart. So besides your brain and your heart, your hair follicles have more nutrient and metabolic needs than any other organ in your body. That should blow your mind, because that shows you just how much your hair will respond in a moment if there's something metabolically wrong with you. And so hypothyroidism is usually the main cause of hair loss, low T3. So if you got your thyroid checked and they just checked TSH and said, oh, your thyroid's fine, you don't know if your thyroid's fine, because TSH doesn't tell you that. You have to test TSH, T4, and T3. And because T4 is the hormone that your thyroid makes, and then T3 is the active form, and your liver has to turn T4 into T3. And so T3 is what gets into your cell, what gets into the cell of your hair follicle, and allows it to metabolize nutrients. And if T3 is low, every single cell in your body is not functioning optimally. So that's the first thing that is almost always the case with really bad hair loss. Second thing is undereating. So women who undereat and overexercise are going to have hair loss through the roof. Another thing is inflammation. So serious inflammation in the gut, whether you're eating foods that don't agree with you, specifically gluten, but then also just processed foods in general and industrial seed oils like canola oil and soybean oil and safflower oil, that kind of thing. It's very damaging to the hair follicle. So that's those are the top 3 things. And all of those things are what I'm actually going to be covering in Fully Nourished. I'm helping, that is usually the foundation of all metabolic and hormone issues anyways. So usually what I implement with my clients and what I will help you implement in Fully Nourished is going to be what I help people, what I do to help people get their hair to grow back as well. So hair loss and getting your hair back is synonymous with healing your metabolism. Hair loss is a metabolic issue. It is a stress issue. Okay, looking for more questions. Oh, I started taking Thorne's SAT. I feel great on my entire supplement routine, but with this addition, I'm noticing excessive mucus in my stool. Can the ingredients cause this? No other current changes. Wow, so SAT is pretty detoxifying, and that is very common when things are dying, like bacteria or yeast or fungus. But if you feel off or if you're worried, like if it's worrisome to you, you can stop it and see if you feel better without it. You always, it's always good to pay attention, but sometimes mucus in your stool is not always a bad thing, especially if you're feeling better, or it's like actually feels like things are being released, or you're letting go of things, then that could actually be a good thing. If your skin looks better, those can all be actually benefits, but obviously if it's worrisome to you, you know in your gut if that's something to worry about, and if it's worrying you, then cease it and see if that makes you feel better and improves that. And then obviously if you're worried, talk to your doctor about it. But yeah, I mean, supplements are always a hit or miss with everybody. Everyone's super different. And it's super important to just listen to your body when it comes to supplements, because your body usually tells you pretty immediately if something's working for you. Hi, how to detox from high arsenic levels found in blood work. Thanks. You guys, when it comes to heavy metals need to stay where they are at. And this is not a thing that most people want to hear, but your body is very, very good at storing it in a place where it is not going to bother you, usually the fat cells. But when you start to take chelators or things where people are saying, take this for a heavy metal detox, what happens to that arsenic? What happens to that lead? What happens to that mercury? It releases from your tissues. And if everything isn't working perfectly, meaning your liver's not doing its job perfectly, you're constipated that day, you're not having the right progesterone, what if that heavy metal gets into your bloodstream and makes it all the way to your brain? What's going to happen then? You're going to get brain damage. And so heavy metals are not to be messed with. They are I've heard some people tell me like, oh, I'm on a heavy metal detox. And I'm like, ah! You don't want to be actively detoxing heavy metals. When your body is ready, it will detox those heavy metals itself. It knows what to do with heavy metals. It knows when it's safe and when everything's ready for heavy metals, and you don't need to be doing any detoxing of heavy metals. It is very unsafe, and anyone that tells you differently is whack. They don't know their science. They do not know the power of heavy metals, and your body knows what's up, and that is why they're stored in your tissues, and you should leave them there until your body's ready. You can take like gentle chelators, like food-based chelators, like cilantro and parsley, like chlorella, spirulina, that kind of thing. And then just make sure your liver's high functioning with the Magic 4. So I always say it's protein. You have to have 100 grams a day, saturated fats, sugars. You have to have 150 grams of sugar in your liver at all times for it to be able to detoxify. And then you always need high quality salt all of the time because you go through it very, very quickly. Keep your stress levels down. Make sure you're nourishing your body fully. And then your body will really do the rest. Some other things that are really important when you're trying to detoxify of heavy metals, or there seems to be heavy metals hanging around inside of your body, is sunlight. If you're not getting enough sunlight, you're not making enough vitamin D, and that can actually stress the liver, because once your body makes vitamin D from sunlight, it gets sent to the liver and gets turned into calciferol, and then calciferol is what actually goes and gives your cells quote unquote vitamin D. So Vitamin D is very important. Vitamin A, vitamin K, and vitamin E are all very, very important, all the fat-soluble vitamins. But other than that, like I wouldn't really actively detox heavy metals, and I did this at one point in my life, which I wish I didn't. I actually got chelated via an IV, and it was the worst time in my life. I literally felt like I was going crazy. I felt like I went mentally insane for about a week. So that obviously led me to look into chelation of heavy metals, and lo and behold, that is really not very safe. But I had a functional medicine doctor recommend it to me, so always do your research, even if a doctor says something. What sort of things could be experienced after removing an IUD? So it really depends on the IUD. I think you said you were on the Mirena. Mirena IUD is the highest amount of progestins in an IUD. Some of the IUDs have less progestins that are released every day, but the Mirena is pretty high. I think it's like 20 micrograms, I want to say, of progestins or levonorgestrel. And the thing is when you're on levonorgestrel, it is an androgenic progestin. So it acts a lot like like an androgen or a testosterone in the body. It also acts as quite like an estrogen as well. And so, but it acts nothing like progesterone, which is so confusing, right? And so it really depends on your body. But if you're already experiencing problems while on the IUD, then the androgenic nature is probably why. And unfortunately, after you get an IUD removed that had progestins in it, or after you go off of birth control that had progestins in it that were of a high androgen index, meaning that they were very androgenic and acted very androgenic in your body, you can have something called an androgen surge. So your skin temporarily gets worse because the sebum, your ovaries have to go back to will make a lot of androgens at first, and so the excess sebum or skin oil will be produced, and it can cause a lot of acne. It can cause a lot of like mood issues, and some women that have a genetic predisposition, it can cause hair loss. So it just kind of depends on the person, but some people just go off and feel fine. So it just kind of depends on how you were affected by it. And then remember, the first year you get the Mirena in, you're probably not ovulating because it releases so much hormone, and then after that first year, it tends to lower because it released a lot of hormones, so now it's just releasing a lower dose of the hormone. And so women tend to go back to ovulating, but that's not always the case. So you want to make sure that after you go off the Mirena, you are going back to ovulating and having a regular cycle. Is it okay to not have a period while breastfeeding? I've been breastfeeding my third baby now for a year and have had no cycle. While breastfeeding my other two kids, I had periods. In that instance, I would make sure everything's okay. It's just different for every woman, but sometimes high prolactin, like a lot of people say that prolactin is the mothering hormone and it's okay for it to be high. And prolactin is actually a stress hormone, so you don't want it to be too high. And that can sometimes be why, like after childbirth, remember that childbirth is a trauma, quote unquote, stressor in itself. It's a wonderful, beautiful thing, but it's very hard on the female body. Like we have to admit, it's one of the hardest things the female body has to do. And so there is a recovery period that has to happen. And this is why so many women, experience postpartum depression and sometimes experience hypothyroidism after a pregnancy, or they never feel like they quite bounce back, or they have a hard time losing the baby weight. This is not because, pregnancy, they, let themselves go. This is because pregnancy is a stressful event. And if you don't go back to recovering well from that event, then you might not recover for a while. And so if you feel like you're having maybe some symptoms, specifically of low progesterone, because the problem with no period is not that you're not bleeding, right? Thank God, right? It's more that you're not ovulating, and ovulation brings on progesterone, and progesterone is super anti-inflammatory. It makes you feel really chill. It makes you feel really good. So if you're not feeling your best, and you're not feeling as vital, and you're feeling kind of anxious and maybe a little bit depressed, then it is important to make sure you can get your period back soon. There could be a reason why. If you're feeling fine and you're just worried about no period, I would be kind of on the fence about it, as long as you're feeling fine. Because most doctors are probably just going to tell you it's normal, but it's not always normal. It can be normal, but that's really up to how you're feeling about it. I hope that makes sense. I'm not trying to over confuse. With PCOS, what are some good tests to take to check for fertility? I've started my weight loss journey and cut out all toxins, nutrient-dense, lots of veggies, and clean food. Yeah, so when it comes to fertility, you guys, I get really real with moms because I want them to really understand their bodies, but then I also want them to understand and be empowered about the health and life of their child. So you have to understand that the more fat cells you have and the more full your fat cells are, remember that your fat cells expand to 10 to 15 times their size to store not only glucose, to also store toxins. And so when we are overweight or we have PCOS or metabolic issues, we can store a lot of toxins in our fat cells. And so when you actively are losing weight and you just started your weight loss journey, I was about to say your fat cell loss, like what the heck, scientific term. Your weight loss journey, you are opening up those fat cells. And guess what? There are a lot of toxins coming out. So whenever a woman is actively trying to lose weight and feels like she's overweight or was exposed to a lot of toxins previously and is no longer, remember, those things stick with you for quite some time. So I really recommend spending 3 to 6 months just losing the weight, getting those fat cells opened up, really supporting liver detoxification before you even think about fertility, because those toxins that are coming out of the fat cells are still going to affect your hormones in your body, and it's just going to be a rough 3 to 6 months. I like to keep it real with you and be honest with you. Somebody else is going to maybe tell you what you want to hear and say, oh, you can just try for a baby and just run those tests and all these things. You want to make sure that your thyroid is high functioning so you can lose the weight the quickest. Like I said, TSH, T4, and T3. And then you want to make sure your progesterone levels are good, which is going to protect your pregnancy. It's very protective against miscarriage, and it's also protective against early births. So that progesterone is super necessary, and you want to make sure you're ovulating every single month. I usually say about for 3 to 6 months consecutively before you even think about trying. Don't even get that sperm near that egg, because you want enough progesterone so you can sustain a healthy baby, not just a baby, because it's your health, the health of your child that is at risk when we start to say I want a baby now, but remember, the baby is growing in the environment that you create. So I would spend 3 to 6 months making sure your thyroid levels are optimized and making sure that your progesterone levels are optimized. And just, do what you're doing, eat clean, avoid chemicals, lose that weight. I know it's just a tough journey. It just is what it is. You're super strong for doing this. And then, make sure you're ovulating monthly. And then once you've ovulated 3 to 4 consecutive times, you're going to be really fertile. Okay? So just work on it. I know it's just work and it sucks. What do you think about taking What do you think about taking maca and ashwagandha for hormonal balance? So maca must be cooked. That's the first thing that I always say when women tell me about maca. As long as it's cooked, you can try it out. If it's raw, it's anti-thyroid because it is a goitrogen, just like broccoli. And you would never eat broccoli raw, or maybe some people do, but it's not really good to eat raw. So don't eat raw maca. You want gelatinized maca. That means it's been boiled and traditionally prepared, like the Mayans did it. And then ashwagandha is really thyroid supportive. So, I recommend starting one at a time and seeing how it affects you. Maybe wait a week or a week and a half and then try the other thing, and like ashwagandha, and then, do it like that. So you know exactly how things are affecting you. I really love fake nails, but what are the downsides? So when it comes to nails, these are my real nails, but, I know that some people just like to get fake nails. So it's just one of those things where you have to weigh the pros and the cons and the balance. If you are, sorry, I hate these white lines, guys, and I say this in every live, but it really bothers me. You need to kind of just balance the pros and the cons for yourself. If you've eliminated all toxins in most of the areas of your life, and that's one of your things that just make you feel really good about yourself and make you feel fierce or on fire, then by all means, I think that they're worth it. Now, if you're getting toxins from every single corner and every single avenue, and you haven't really cleaned up your life yet, it's just another thing. I always say these things are like death by 1,000 cuts. And so you have to choose what, for me, my couple cuts are, I love getting my nails done. I love getting my hair done. and I occasionally use self-tanner, and that's kind of my thing. And I'm not going to give it up because I've already gotten rid of so many chemicals in my life. So that's just my personal choice. It's going to look different for everybody, but for you, you have to kind of do that in your own life. I don't know what chemicals you're exposed to regularly. I don't know, what kind of work you've done. If you've done a lot and you're like, girl, I just want to get my nails done, go get your nails done. Because I actually saw a study that said getting a manicure lowers your cortisol levels like 70% because you're like happy, like you like your hands and you like your nails. It's weird. I gotta go find that study. I heard about it like 2 years ago. But yeah, so getting a manicure, if it makes you happy and it like makes you just like kind of walk a little bit higher on those clouds, go get a manicure. Any idea about orange tinted hands related to hypothyroid or conversion issue? Not eating carrots or squash currently. Yeah, because like usually I would say a buildup of beta carotene, but are you taking a vitamin D supplement? That could be why. Thanks so much for answering. Appreciate it. Yeah, going back to the orange tinted hands really quick before I forget. So fat-soluble vitamins can accumulate in the tissues. So, it would be important to know what you're taking daily. Like, are you taking grass-fed liver every single day? That can have high levels of vitamin A and be too much. Are you taking vitamin D every single day? That will accumulate in your tissues. Even vitamin K, and then vitamin E, but usually people aren't on that. So, you definitely have something accumulating in your tissues, I would guess. But yeah, that's really interesting. It would be like interesting to see what you're on supplement wise. And then it would also be interesting to just see like your stress levels. And it could also be, some doctors would maybe want to check liver enzymes as well to make sure everything in the liver is going okay. Hey Jess, my hormonal acne is gone, but I still have lots of hyperpigmentation scars. What could be the reason for slow healing? Yeah, so when it comes to hyperpigmentation and just skin healing in general, you have to hyperpigmentation is different than scarring. So I would, if it's from acne scars that can maybe show that your skin's not regenerating quick enough, make sure that your cortisol levels are, usually the skin doesn't regenerate because of stress. And so, B vitamins are really important there. Avoiding polyunsaturated fats, specifically from like gross seed oils like canola, soybean, safflower, sunflower, which almost every restaurant I know of cooks in. And then making sure you're getting plenty of saturated fats from animal sources, coconut oil, grass-fed butter, that kind of thing. And then you got to make sure you're getting enough amino acids, specifically bioavailable amino acids from collagen and bone broth and pasture-raised meats and the occasional seafood and liver, which has all of those micronutrients in it. Because you have to remember, you guys, that animals take plant foods and break them down and put concentrated amounts of what's in those plant foods into their tissues, and they pre-filter it for us. So they get a lot of the toxins out because they have digestive systems that are meant to really break down and extract things from plants, which we don't really have. And so it's very important to remember that when it comes to skin healing, bioavailable nutrients are key. And you need concentrated sources of nutrients, which mostly comes from animal foods. So that's another thing that can be really helpful. Even some dairy can be really helpful in recovering a slow skin healing. Usually it's a sign of a nutrient deficiency or stress on the body. Are there benefits of celery juice? Thoughts on the cleanse? I'm not sure about the cleanse. I've never heard of it. Contrary to what you guys believe, I don't know like every supplement on the market. Celery juice is okay. I mean, it's pretty anti-estrogenic and it can be really helpful for digestion. It can be easily absorbed and you don't have to actually break down the fiber in the celery, which can be beneficial. So it's really just up to you. I don't really drink it every day, but I enjoy drinking it when I feel like it. I think anything can come monotonous or even feel like a chore eventually. And so for me, I like keeping celery juice in my back pocket. It's nice to have it, when I want it. But I don't necessarily recommend you have to drink it every single day unless it really does make you feel good and it adds benefit and quality to your life. But the only way to know about that kind of stuff is to actually experiment and try it on your own body. What's the best way to help decrease testosterone levels? Yeah, you guys, so testosterone levels are usually high due to excess estrogens, because in PCOS or in any general hormonal imbalance, a lot of times women are estrogen dominant, meaning we do not make enough progesterone in relationship to estrogen, meaning we have lots of estrogen going around unchecked in the body. Estrogen is very carcinogenic, very cancerous, and it's also very inflammatory, and the body knows that. It's not safe for the ovaries to have a high amount of estrogen. And so your body is very wise, and it actually secretes something to actually protect the ovaries from excess estrogens. Surprise, surprise, testosterone does that. So we have to look at testosterone not as the enemy, but actually as the body's protective mechanism against other hormones that might be hiding in the depths of your hormonal imbalances. And this is why I'm always talking about getting to the root cause of things. It's because a lot of people will say, oh, testosterone is high in PCOS, and so you should just lower testosterone. Testosterone is not the issue. Yeah, it's causing some symptoms, but it's not the actual issue. Testosterone is high because estrogen is high and you're insulin resistant. And insulin can cause the ovaries to actually make more testosterone as well. So I always look at the why behind high testosterone, and it's usually stress, it's usually estrogen, and it's usually inflammation. And this is due to improper liver detoxification and too many excess estrogens coming in exogenously, meaning that you're just being exposed to too many estrogens in plastic water bottles and chemicals, whether that's cleaning chemicals or hygiene products, or you're eating too many non-organic foods that have pesticides on them, which are estrogenic in themselves. There's so many things I could go down the line, but it's really important to understand that testosterone is made to protect the body from estrogen, and estrogen is the culprit there almost always. And so it's really important to open up the liver detoxification pathways to make sure estrogen is being detoxified efficiently and optimized, and then also making sure that you're getting enough nutrients that are going to protect you from those estrogens as well. And usually once inflammation is lowered and once stress on the body is lowered, lo and behold, testosterone lowers as well. What's your take on fermented soy being anti-estrogenic? Stay away, full stop, if you're in your reproductive years. Yeah, I'm not, tempeh once in a while is fine. It's not like I'm anti-tempeh, but or miso, if you want to do a little bit, but I personally would never make it a part of my daily diet because I just don't like how anti-thyroid soy is. People don't really make the connection between the thyroid being the culprit behind hormonal imbalances. Anything that damages the thyroid, once T3 is damaged, or lowered, your hormones will not be optimized because your cells are not optimized, and your cells are what make hormones. And so I personally stay away from most things that are anti-thyroid, and soy is anti-thyroid, but I don't really like things that have soy in them either. I'm not miso or tempeh. I'm ugh, don't make me eat that. So if you're somebody that enjoys it, then why not enjoy it a little bit? So that's kind of a personal decision for me, but then I eat other things in moderation that are anti-thyroid, like nuts or sometimes some grains. So, I kind of choose my poison, but I wouldn't consider soy a part of a healthy diet at all. And that goes, I should say, that's different for people that maybe grew up eating soy or adapted their genetics adapted to eating soy. For example, somebody of Asian descent probably is better off with soy than somebody that is of European descent who never touched soy until this past century. So just kind of keep that in mind, ancestrally and primally, what were your ancestors adapted to eating? That's probably going to be the best food for you. Sorry, I gotta moisturize the throat there. Okay, where are you located? I am located in Southern California. I am in a small town in between, a little bit inland from San Diego. So, yeah, that's where I am. I'm in Southern California. I need to lose a significant amount of weight and struggle with PCOS. What is the best method to use to figure out desired calorie intake? You guys, calories are so stupid. Forget the word exists. Seriously, it is such a stupid word. I wish it never existed. You guys, you have a built-in mechanism to tell you when to stop eating and when to start eating. And it is called a hunger signal and an appetite. And your appetite is way more important than a biological signal that's way more important than any number that you could ever count. So, remember, your body is wiser than any app, any number, any calculation. Blech. You are your own best healer and you are your own best weight loss engineer. So it's very important to eat balanced meals that contain a protein, a carb, and a fat. This is what I'm going to be teaching in Fully Nourished, and to listen to your body. You are going to have days where you are not hungry. So do not eat when you are not hungry. And you are going to have days where you are starving. And so does that make sense that you want to make your metabolism work faster to burn more energy, but you're going to restrict energy from your body? That makes no common sense. If you want your body to burn energy, it needs to be provided with energy. And so that's how you have to look at food. Calories mean nothing. Quality of food is everything. And nutrient-dense foods are where it's at. So nutrients over calories, and anything that is calorie rich and nutrient poor should be out of your diet. So anything processed. Stick to ingredients, stick to whole real foods, stick to protein, carb, and fat, and I promise you, you will lose weight if you are listening to your hunger signals. Restriction always leads to binging, almost always, you guys. At one form or another, you will binge after restriction, whether that's in 1 week, 2 weeks of restriction, even 3 weeks. It really depends on your mental tenacity, but there will be a point where your body has to override your brain and binge if you are restricting calories. It is a biological response. It is impossible to mentally resist from eating when your body needs nutrients. A natural way of liver detoxification that you recommend. I have a liver detox guide on my website, you guys. You can just look for it in the link in my bio, in my resource library. It's free. And it talks about all the ways that you can really help support liver detoxification. But in that guide, I don't talk about the fact that you need to make sure you're intaking enough protein, sugar, or carbs. They're interchangeable, saturated fats, and salt, or your liver cannot function properly. It doesn't matter what you take. If you take milk thistle, if you take a liver detox supplement, I don't care what it is, your liver cannot work without those nutrients. Because think of your liver as a battery pack for your body. Whenever your body's running low on fuel, your liver has a certain amount of fuel stores to fuel your cells when there's no fuel coming into the body. But there does come a point where your liver becomes empty, and if we don't have enough of the right macronutrients to really refill the liver, or we're not eating regularly, our body gets depleted very quickly. It has to go through those nutrient stores very quickly, and then it gets to a point where we don't have any more. So what are we going to do? We're going to raise stress hormone, cortisol, adrenaline, prolactin, ACTH, TSH, and we're going to start to break down tissues so that we can get the nutrients that we need, at the expense of your hair, your bones, your skin, your nails, you name it. Your body will break it down in order to survive. And so it's very important to make sure that you are eating plenty of food, plenty of nutrients for proper liver detoxification. B vitamins are also very important. And then in addition, you could really use all of the liver detoxification strategies I have in my liver detox guide. There's quite a bit on there. Hi, Miss Mama Storfer. What does it mean if your liver enzymes are elevated in labs? It means your liver is really stressed out. Usually, there does come a point where high liver enzymes can turn into fatty liver, and that's like long-term having high elevated liver enzymes. And so it's really important to make sure that you're not eating too many seed oils. Like I would restrict them completely, like nuts, seeds, and like canola oil, soybean oil, any of that, like anything you would get at a restaurant. Make sure it's cooked up in butter. And then I would make sure you're switching out all your fats for saturated fats. And then if you're trying to restrict sugar, that could be why your liver enzymes are high as well. Drink some orange juice before you go to bed, and see if that helps, because remember, your liver glycogen stores get really depleted throughout the night, and then if you don't refill them in the morning, you're gonna have your liver is just going to be stressed out. It can't do its job. So try those things and then see if it helps. Make sure you're not restricting any of the magic 4 macronutrients, which is protein, 100 grams a day, saturated fat to appetite, enough carbohydrates and sugars from fruit or from roots. I say roots and fruits, and then enough Himalayan pink salt or Celtic sea salt. Can you share a bit about how nuts can be anti-thyroid? Yeah, you guys. So whenever I talk about a food, I really want to preface a food. Like, I never want to demonize a food. I think there's a lot of people in the health and wellness community that have done a really poor job, it almost makes me angry, of really demonizing foods. And so it gets us to this place where we're really confused about food. We're like, oh my gosh, like, what do I even eat? Or, you know, I'm restricting all of these things. So I think it's very important to know why you restrict something, or why I always call it casual avoidance. I always recommend that over like being like, I don't eat that. You know, it's okay if you have some nuts once in a while. But my problem is today, in our day and age, we have this demonization of dairy going on. Dairy, you know, that's a different argument. I have a story on it if you want some truth on dairy. But dairy is not as problematic for people as a lot of people make it seem. And what do we switch dairy out for? We get nut milks, nut cheeses, nut flours, I've seen so many nut products, nut crackers. I mean, the list goes on and on and on. And so here we are eating nuts in abundance. And we have to think of it from an ancestral perspective. Would you have ever, nuts are very hard to actually collect from plants. Like when you're foraging, you find maybe one seed and you have to like shuck it, you have to like pull the nut out, you have to crack it. Like, that's a very energy intensive job. So usually probably people were eating maybe like 2 or 3 nuts, and then you'd be like, forget it, I'm not cracking this nut open, are you kidding me? And then now, so you'd be eating like maybe 2 or 3 nuts here and there. Now, look at our culture now. With the industrialness of our culture, we'll take a commodity and then we'll just make a bunch of shit out of it. And that's what we're doing with nuts. And so people are eating such high amount of nuts. And nuts are not bad in themselves, but like high amounts of nuts are super estrogenic. And estrogen is anti-thyroid. And so phytoestrogens, though, like the ones found in soy, like the ones found in grains, like the ones found in nuts, all can be anti-thyroid. And if you're already having a thyroid issue or a metabolic issue, which most women are, this can actually end up causing stress long term. Now again, I'm not saying like you have to avoid nuts at all costs, but really look at the amount that you're eating. And would you eat that in nature? Would you go collect that many nuts? Or if it's like a nut butter or a nut cheese, like how many nuts are you actually consuming? You know, if you actually look at it from that perspective, you realize like, oh wow, like I'm eating probably more nuts than any of my ancestors have ever consumed in history. And so because of their availability, they're also very, very unsustainable in my opinion. They're very anti-environment. Like if you're pro-environment, they consume so much water in their production, and they're very damaging to the environment. Like they don't really instill a lot back into the soil or anything like that. So they just really deplete the earth, and they don't really give anything back to the earth. Whereas like cattle, they are eating plants, but then they're recycling it and they're pooping, and they're actually fertilizing the earth and putting their minerals and vitamins back into the earth, which is actually going to regenerate the soil and allow our children and our children's children to consume foods that are nutrient dense, instead of depleting the soil so deeply without really instilling anything back into the soil. I hope that makes sense. But nuts in themselves are not necessarily bad. It's just the amount of nuts we're consuming. But if you're looking for something that's really anti-thyroid, that's going to be like the industrial seed oils, like canola oil, soybean oil, safflower oil, sunflower oil, any kind of seed oil. Like just think about it. In nature, we would never take a nut and we would never press it. And then canola oil is cottonseed oil. And so you would never even consume cottonseed. It's not even a food. It's a poison. And so those are all reasons why they're anti-thyroid. And then remember that estrogens get stored in fatty tissues, specifically the fat cells, and our thyroid is a fatty tissue. And so when we have too many estrogens being stored up in the thyroid tissue, it can actually suppress thyroid function. And then it also suppresses liver function, which is where the active form of T4, or the active form of T3 is made from T4 converted. So conversion happens there. Okay, you guys, so I've been on for an hour and Instagram's going to shut me off, but you know me, I like to hop back on. So if I didn't answer your question, just please bring it to the next live. I'll just go live again really quickly and I'll answer the rest of your questions. Sorry about that.